The darkness of space stretched endlessly before the Odyssey's reach as it moved through the Veil Nebula. Captain Gregory Stone stood on the bridge, watching the stars shift past the viewport. They had been exploring this sector for 3 months now, finding nothing but empty planets and dead rocks. His crew was getting restless. Command back on Earth expected results, and so far, they had nothing to show for their journey. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Lieutenant Amy Carson said from her station. Her fingers danced across the console, and her face showed confusion. "There's a massive object ahead. It's not on any of our maps." Gregory moved to her side and looked at the readings. The object was huge, maybe 10 miles across, and it was giving off energy signatures that made no sense. "What is it?" he asked. "I don't know, sir. It's just sitting there in space. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database." Commander Kyle Bren stepped forward, his expression cautious as always. "Captain, we should approach carefully. Unknown objects this far out could be dangerous." Gregory nodded. "Agreed. Amy, send the probe first. Let's see what we're dealing with before we get too close." The probe launched from the ship and moved toward the mysterious object. As it got closer, the cameras revealed something breathtaking. The object was a massive sphere made of crystal that seemed to glow with an inner light. Strange symbols covered its surface, and it rotated slowly in the void. The probe's instruments showed the crystal was ancient, possibly millions of years old. "My God," Dr. Linda Hayes whispered from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien languages and first contact procedures. "Captain, this could be from the Elders, the civilization that disappeared long before humans even existed." Gregory felt his heart race. Finding Elder technology was the dream of every explorer. Their civilization had spanned the galaxy millions of years ago, but they had vanished without a trace. Only ruins remained, scattered across hundreds of worlds. If this was really an Elder structure, it could change everything humanity knew about the universe. "Take us closer," Gregory ordered. Nice and slow. The Odyssey's reach approached the crystal sphere carefully. As they got within a mile, a section of the sphere suddenly lit up. A beam of light shot out and touched the ship's hull. For a moment, everyone held their breath, but nothing happened. Then the ship's computers started receiving data. "Captain, it's transmitting something," Amy said, her voice excited. "It's a massive amount of information. I'm routing it to Dr. Hayes' station." Linda worked frantically at her console, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's a language, an alien language. The computer is trying to translate it, but it's incredibly complex. This might take hours." "We have time," Gregory said. "Let's set up a stable orbit around this thing. Peter, make sure all systems are ready. I want to know immediately if anything changes." Peter Liu, the chief engineer, nodded from his station. "Yes, sir. All systems are green." The next few hours passed in tense excitement. The crew worked together to analyze the Elder structure, while Dr. Hayes fought to decode the alien language. Gregory watched her work, impressed by her dedication. She barely looked up from her console, her fingers moving constantly as she worked through the translation algorithms. Finally, as the ship's clock showed they had been there for 6 hours, Linda sat back in her chair. Her face was pale, and her hands shook slightly. "Captain, I've got something. You need to hear this." Gregory moved to her station, and Kyle joined him. The rest of the bridge crew turned to listen. Linda pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above her console. The alien symbols shifted and transformed into English text. "This is a warning," Linda read, her voice shaking. "The Elders built this structure as a beacon. They're warning anyone who finds it to stay away from this sector of space. There's something here, something they called a dimensional rift. It's a tear in the fabric of reality itself. She paused, scrolling through more text. The elders discovered the rift by accident. They tried to study it, to understand it. But something came through. Entities from another dimension. The elders called them the Hollow Ones. They nearly destroyed the entire elder civilization. Kyle leaned forward, his face serious. What happened? The elders managed to build containment fields around the rift, Linda continued. But it cost them everything. They sacrificed millions of their people to power the containment. This beacon is their final message. They're begging anyone who finds it to leave this place alone. Never try to study the rift. Never try to interact with it. The danger is too great. The bridge fell silent. Gregory felt a chill run down his spine. An ancient civilization far more advanced than humanity had been nearly destroyed by whatever was in this sector. The warning was clear and absolute. "Captain," Kyle said quietly, "we should leave. Mark this location as forbidden and report back to command. This isn't something we should mess with." Gregory knew Kyle was right. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to turn around and go home. But his mind was already racing with possibilities. Elder technology could revolutionize human civilization. The containment fields alone would be worth studying. And command would want answers, not just warnings from a dead civilization. "Dr. Hayes," he said slowly, "does the beacon say anything about the current state of the containment fields?" Linda checked her translations. "Yes, according to this, the fields were designed to last for millions of years. But it's been millions of years since the elders built them. The message warns that the fields might be degrading. So they might still be intact," Gregory said. "We could take readings from a safe distance. Just scan the containment technology. We wouldn't have to interact with the rift itself." Kyle's face hardened. "Captain, that's exactly what the elders are warning against. They studied it from a safe distance, too, and look what happened to them." "The elders didn't have our technology," Gregory argued. "We're more careful. We know the danger now. A few scans from a distance can't hurt. Think about what we could learn." "Captain, please," Linda said, her voice pleading. "I've spent my whole career studying the elders. They were incredibly advanced. If they're this scared of something, we should listen." Gregory looked around the bridge. He could see the fear and uncertainty on their faces. But he could also see the hunger for knowledge. Humanity had always pushed forward, always explored, always reached for the next discovery. That's what made them special. That's what had brought them to the stars. "We'll be careful," he said finally. "Lieutenant Morrison, prepare a science probe. We'll send it to scan the containment fields from a safe distance. No direct interaction with the rift. Just readings." Kyle's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Linda looked down at her console, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Gregory felt a twinge of doubt, but he pushed it away. They would be careful. They would be smart. What could possibly go wrong with a simple scan from a distance? The probe launched an hour later, moving toward the coordinates the Elder Beacon had provided. As it disappeared into the darkness, Gregory Stone had no idea that he had just made the worst decision in human history. The Elder's warning had been clear, but humanity's curiosity was stronger than wisdom. And the price for that curiosity would be paid in blood. The probe reached the coordinates 2 days after launch. Lieutenant Jake Morrison watched his screens with intense focus as data started flowing back to the ship. He was the science officer assigned to analyze the Elder containment technology, and he had never seen anything like it. The readings were beyond incredible. They were impossible. "Captain Stone, you need to see this," Jake said over the communications channel. His voice trembled with excitement. "The containment field is using principles we've never even theorized about. It's bending space-time in ways that shouldn't be possible. If we could understand this technology, it would change everything. Gregory stood in his ready room, listening to Jake's report. He felt vindicated in his decision to investigate. This was exactly why humanity explored the stars. "What's the current state of the field?" he asked. "It's degrading," Jake admitted. The Elder warning was right about that. "I'm seeing fluctuations in the field strength. Some sections are weaker than others. But Captain, if we could get closer readings, we might be able to stabilize it. We might be able to help." In the bridge, Kyle Brennan overheard the conversation and shook his head. "Captain, with respect, we're not here to help. We're here to observe and report. We should send all this data back to command and let them decide what to do next." But Gregory was already convinced. "Morrison, how close would you need to get for better readings?" "Maybe half a mile from the field perimeter," Jake answered. "I could take a shuttle. It would be perfectly safe. The probe's been scanning for hours with no problems." Kyle stood up from his chair. "Captain, this is a mistake. The Elders specifically warned against this kind of interaction." "We're not interacting with the rift," Gregory said firmly. "We're studying the containment field. There's a difference. Morrison, you have permission to take a shuttle, but stay in constant contact. If anything changes, anything at all, you come back immediately." "Yes, sir," Jake said eagerly. "I'll prep the shuttle right now." An hour later, Jake Morrison piloted a small shuttle away from the Odyssey's reach. With him was Dr. Helen Price, the ship's astrophysicist, and Sergeant Danny West, a security officer who had volunteered for the mission. The three of them watched in awe as they approached the containment field. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The field appeared as shimmering waves of energy that curved through space like a giant bubble. Inside the bubble, they could see the rift itself. It looked like a crack in reality, a black wound in space that hurt to look at. Strange lights flickered around its edges, colors that didn't quite exist in normal space. "Sensors are picking up massive gravitational distortions," Helen said from her station. "The rift is pulling at space-time around it. Without the containment field, it would probably expand indefinitely." "Look at this," Jake said, his instruments beeping rapidly. "The Elder technology is creating a quantum resonance that stabilizes the local dimension. It's brilliant. I'm recording everything." Danny West sat in the back, his hand resting on his weapon out of habit. He didn't like this. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even though his sensors showed nothing alive anywhere near them. "How long are we staying?" he asked. "Just a few more minutes," Jake said. "I want to get readings from multiple angles." He maneuvered the shuttle closer, moving along the perimeter of the containment field. His instruments collected data at an incredible rate. He was so focused on his work that he didn't notice the warning indicator flashing on his navigation panel until it was too late. The shuttle's engines sent out a small pulse of energy as Jake adjusted their position. It was a normal part of the propulsion system, something that happened 1,000 times during any flight. But this time, the pulse interacted with the containment field in an unexpected way. The frequency matched a harmonic in the Elder technology. "Oh no," Helen whispered, staring at her readings. "Jake, the field is reacting to our engines. It's creating a resonance cascade." Jake's blood turned to ice. He looked at his instruments and saw the horror unfolding in real time. A section of the containment field was flickering, its energy output dropping rapidly. "Odyssey, we have a problem," he said into his comm. "The field is destabilizing. We triggered something." On the ship, Gregory Stone jumped from his chair. "Morrison, get out of there. Now." But it was already too late. A section of the containment field, already weakened by millions of years, collapsed completely. The rift was exposed, and something was coming through. They appeared as shadows at first, dark shapes that moved in ways that made no sense. They seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could properly see. One moment they looked flat, like drawings on paper. The next moment they had too much depth, extending into spaces that shouldn't exist. They were called the Hollow Ones, and they had been waiting behind that barrier for millions of years. "Get us out of here," Danny shouted, but Jake was frozen in horror, staring at the things pouring through the breach in the containment field. There were dozens of them, then hundreds. They moved toward the shuttle with terrible speed. Helen screamed as one of them passed through the shuttle's hull like it wasn't even there. The thing touched Danny, and he collapsed immediately, his eyes going blank. His body remained, but something essential was gone. He was an empty shell. "Emergency separation," Helen shouted, her training taking over. She hit the button that would eject the cockpit section from the rest of the shuttle. Explosive bolts fired, and the front of the shuttle broke away just as more hollow. One swarmed into the passenger compartment. Jake engaged the emergency thrusters, pushing the damaged cockpit away from the rift as fast as it would go. Through the viewport, he could see the Hollow Ones spreading outward in all directions. Some of them were moving toward the Odyssey's reach. "Odyssey, the breach is expanding," he transmitted, his voice shaking. "Multiple entities have come through. They're heading your way. They passed right through our hull. They can't be stopped by physical barriers." On the bridge of the Odyssey's reach, chaos erupted. Gregory watched in horror as the sensors showed hundreds of contacts moving toward his ship at incredible speed. "Battle stations," he ordered. "All crew to emergency positions. Engineering, prepare for emergency jump to faster than light speed." "Captain, we can't leave Morrison and Price," Kyle said. "I'm calculating an intercept course," Amy Carson said quickly. "If we move now, we can pick them up before we jump." The ship moved forward, its tractor beam reaching out to grab the damaged cockpit section. They pulled it into the shuttle bay, just as the first Hollow Ones reached the ship's hull. Gregory watched on the monitor as 3 of the shadow entities attached themselves to the outer hull and simply sank into it, passing through the metal like ghosts. "They're inside the ship," Kyle said, his voice tight with fear. "Deck 7, Section 12. Seal that section," Gregory ordered. "Evacuate everyone to the central decks. Jump drive is ready," Peter Liu called from engineering. "We can jump in 30 seconds. Gregory made his decision. "Do it. Get us out of here." The Odyssey's reach activated its faster-than-light drive and disappeared from the sector in a flash of light. Behind them, hundreds of Hollow Ones continued to pour through the breach in the containment field. The Elder warning had been clear. The danger had been absolute. And humanity had ignored it all. Now, as the ship fled through the darkness with 3 entities somewhere in its corridors, Gregory Stone realized what he had done. He had opened a door that should have stayed closed forever. He had released something that even the mighty Elders had feared. And somewhere deep in the ship, crew members were already starting to disappear, consumed by shadows that should not exist. The containment had failed. The Hollow Ones were free, and humanity's nightmare was just beginning. Unity Station appeared on the view screen like a beacon of hope in the darkness. The massive space station orbited a lifeless moon, home to 50,000 people who worked in the mining operations and research facilities scattered across the system. Captain Gregory Stone felt relief wash over him as they approached. They would get help here. They would figure out how to stop the Hollow Ones, but the 3 entities had been busy during the 2-day journey. "Captain, I'm getting reports from Deck 7, Amy Carson said, her voice shaking. 6 crew members are missing. Their quarters are empty, but there's no sign of struggle. It's like they just vanished." Kyle Brennan pulled up the security footage on his console. What he saw made his blood run cold. The video showed a crew member walking down a corridor when a shadow detached from the wall. It moved like liquid darkness, flowing over the person in seconds. The crew member's mouth opened in a silent scream, and then they simply stopped. Their body remained standing, but their eyes were empty, dead. The thing that looked like a person walked into the shadows and disappeared. "They're not just killing people," Kyle said quietly. "They're taking them, consuming them somehow." Jake Morrison sat in the medical bay, his hands wrapped in bandages. The doctor said he would recover from the minor injuries he got during the emergency separation, but his mind was another matter. He couldn't stop seeing Danny West's face as the life drained from his eyes. He couldn't stop thinking about how this was all his fault. Dr. Linda Hayes sat beside him, trying to offer comfort. "You didn't know this would happen," she said softly. "I should have listened," Jake replied. "The elders warned us. You warned us." I was so excited about the technology that I didn't think about the danger. On the bridge, Gregory was making the decision to dock with Unity Station, despite the danger on his ship. They needed help from the station's security forces and scientists. Maybe together they could find a way to stop these things. "Unity Station, this is Captain Stone of the Odyssey's Reach," he transmitted. "We have an extreme emergency. We're requesting permission to dock, but I need to warn you. We have hostile entities aboard. Unknown life forms that are extremely dangerous." The response came quickly from the station's commander. "Odyssey's Reach, this is Commander Richard Palmer. We're scrambling security teams to docking Bay 3. Proceed with caution." The ship docked 20 minutes later. Security teams in full protective gear waited as the airlock opened. The protective gear meant nothing against the Hollow Ones. The creatures could pass through any physical barrier. The moment the airlock connected, one of the entities slipped through and entered the station. No one noticed at first. The security teams boarded the Odyssey's Reach and began searching for the creatures. Gregory led Commander Palmer to the bridge and explained everything. He showed him the Elder warning, the data from the rift, and the security footage of the crew members being taken. Palmer's face grew pale as he watched. "This is beyond anything we're equipped to handle," he said. "I need to contact Earth Command immediately." But it was already too late for Unity Station. The single Hollow One that had entered moved through the corridors like a plague. It touched people as they walked, worked, and lived their normal lives. Each person it touched became another empty shell. And the worst part was that the empty shells could move and function. They looked normal from a distance. They could even perform simple tasks. But they were dead inside, puppets being controlled by something from another dimension. Within 6 hours, hundreds were infected. The thing spread exponentially as each empty shell helped the entity reach more victims. Station security tried to lock down sections, but the Hollow One could pass through any door, any wall, any barrier. Kyle Brand realized what was happening when he saw a security officer he had spoken with earlier walking toward him with empty eyes. "Captain, we need to evacuate," he said urgently. "The station is compromised." Gregory made the hardest decision of his life. "All Odyssey crew, return to the ship immediately. We're leaving." "Captain, there are 50,000 people on this station," Linda protested. "And we can't save them," Gregory said, his voice breaking. "If we stay, we'll just spread this thing further. We need to warn Earth." Kyle watched the chaos unfold through the station's security monitors. People were running, screaming, trying to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The Hollow One was everywhere now, multiplied through its victims. "Captain, we can seal sections. We can save some of them." Gregory looked at his executive officer and saw the determination in his eyes. "What are you thinking?" "I can manually seal the main sections from the engineering core," Kyle said. "It will take someone physically present to override the computer systems that the entity might have compromised. I can trap it in the lower levels." Maybe save 30,000 people in the upper sections. That's a one-way trip, Gregory said quietly. You won't make it back to the ship. Kyle smiled sadly. I know, but this is my fault too. I should have stopped you from investigating the rift. This is how I make it right. Before Gregory could argue, Kyle was moving. He ran through the airlock back onto Unity Station, heading for the engineering core. Gregory watched him go, his heart breaking. The Odyssey's Reach undocked 15 minutes later. Through the view screen, Gregory could see Unity Station's emergency lights flashing. Kyle's voice came over the comm one last time. Sections 1 through 12 are sealed. About 32,000 survivors. Captain, you need to stop this. Don't let my sacrifice be for nothing. I won't, Gregory promised. I'll find a way. The comm went silent. Kyle Brennan had sealed himself in the lower sections with the Hollow One. He had saved 30,000 lives with his sacrifice. But he couldn't save himself. As the Odyssey's Reach moved away from Unity Station, Gregory transmitted everything they knew back to Earth. Every bit of data. Every recording, every translation from the Elder Warning. He included a message with it. Humanity had made a terrible mistake, and now they had to live with the consequences. But the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. Admiral Christine Boyd received the transmission at Earth Defense Command headquarters. She watched the videos 3 times, barely believing what she was seeing. Then she checked the incoming ship registry and felt her heart drop into her stomach. The commercial transport ship Frontier Dream had left Unity Station 3 days ago, before the outbreak. It was scheduled to dock at Mars Colony 7 in 4 hours. There were 2,000 passengers aboard, and Admiral Boyd had no way of knowing if any of them were infected. She grabbed her comm. This is Admiral Boyd. Implement Emergency Protocol 7 across the entire Mars system. Lock down all colonies immediately. The Frontier Dream is not to dock anywhere until we can screen every person aboard. But the order came too late. The Frontier Dream had already docked at Mars Colony 7 an hour earlier. The passengers had disembarked and spread throughout the colony. Some of them had empty eyes and hollow smiles. The hollow ones had reached Mars. Within a week, 3 Mars colonies went dark. Communication stopped. No ships responded to hails. When a military vessel finally approached Colony 7, they found the airlock sealed from the inside and no signs of life on sensors. 30 million people called Mars home. Now they were at risk. Earth declared a system-wide emergency. Ships were recalled. Colonies were locked down. The quantum communication network that connected human space was shut down section by section. When scientists discovered the Hollow Ones could somehow use it to spread their influence. Entire sectors of space went dark as humanity tried desperately to contain the spread. Senator Paul Grant stood before the Emergency Council on Earth and spoke words no one wanted to hear. We are facing an extinction-level threat. This is not a war we can fight with weapons. This is not an enemy we can negotiate with. The elders feared these things enough to sacrifice their entire civilization to contain them. And we let them out. Dr. Martin Cross, humanity's leading expert on spaceborne threats, presented his findings. The Hollow Ones exist partially outside our dimension. They feed on consciousness itself. Every person they touch becomes a doorway for more entities to enter our reality. If we can't stop this, they'll consume every living mind in human space. Gregory Stone listened to the broadcasts from the Odyssey's Reach as it limped back toward Earth. His ship was attuned now. Only 40 crew members remained alive out of the original 200. The rest were empty shells that wandered the corridors, or they had simply disappeared. He had started this. His curiosity, his ambition, his arrogance had doomed millions. But he would end it too. Somehow, he would find a way to fix this. The Elder data had to contain an answer. They had defeated the Hollow Ones once before. Humanity could do it again. The question was whether they could do it before the Hollow Ones consumed everything humanity had built among the stars. Dr. Vincent Cole had not slept in 3 days. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hands shook from too much caffeine and too little rest. But he didn't care. He was racing against the end of human civilization, and he had finally found something in the Elder data. Something that might save them all. "Admiral Boyd, you need to see this," he said over the secure channel. His laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface was one of the few places still considered safe from the Hollow Ones. The entities seemed to have trouble passing through dense rock. Though no one understood why Admiral Christine Boyd appeared on his screen, looking just as exhausted as he felt. "Tell me you have good news, Doctor. Because I just got reports that 17 colonies are now infected. That's 3 billion people at risk." "The Elders didn't destroy the Hollow Ones," Vincent said quickly, pulling up his translations on the screen. Dr. Hayes was right about that. But she didn't have time to translate everything before Unity Station fell. "I've been working through the rest of the data. The Elders couldn't kill these things because they exist partially outside our reality. Conventional weapons don't work. Energy weapons don't work. Nothing physical can hurt them. Then how did the Elders stop them?" Boyd asked. "They forced them back," Vincent explained. "The Elders developed something they called a resonance device. It creates a harmonic frequency that spans multiple dimensions. When activated, it forces the Hollow Ones back into their own dimension and seals the rift permanently. But there's a problem." Boyd leaned forward. "What problem?" "The device requires consciousness to power it," Vincent said, his voice heavy. "Not electrical power or fusion power. Actual living consciousness. The Elders sacrificed millions of their people to power the device. They fed their own minds into the machine to create the resonance field strong enough to seal the rift. It destroyed their entire civilization, but they did it to save the other species in the galaxy." The silence on the channel stretched for a long moment. Finally, Boyd spoke. "How many would we need?" "According to the calculations, 3 individuals would be enough if they're properly synchronized," Vincent answered. "But they won't survive the process. The machine pulls consciousness apart at the quantum level and uses it as fuel. It's not a quick death. The Elder records suggest it takes several minutes of unimaginable pain." Boyd closed her eyes. "Build the device." "That's an order." 2 weeks later, the resonance device was complete. Built from Elder specifications and human engineering, it sat in a specially designed ship at Earth's largest orbital shipyard. The ship was called the Hope's End, and it had one purpose: to return to the original rift and activate the device. Captain Gregory Stone stood in the shipyard, looking up at the vessel that would carry him to his death. He had volunteered immediately when the call went out. This was his fault. He would end it. Dr. Linda Hayes stood beside him, her small bag packed. She had volunteered too. "Someone who understands the Elder language needs to operate the device," she had told Admiral Boyd. "I'm the most qualified person alive. It has to be me." The third volunteer surprised everyone. Lieutenant Jake Morrison walked slowly toward them, his steps careful and measured. He looked different now. The exposure to the Hollow Ones during the breach had changed him somehow. His eyes had a strange depth to them, and sometimes he seemed to flicker slightly, like a bad hologram. But he was still holding on to his humanity, still fighting the transformation. "I'm partially like them now," Jake said quietly. "That might help me interface with the device better. I can feel them sometimes, in my mind. I know how they think. I can use that." Captain Nicole Freeman commanded the military escort that would take Hope's End back to the rift. She was a special operations commander with 20 years of experience, and she had handpicked her team. Lieutenant Sam Porter served as her second-in-command and pilot. They had 12 other soldiers, all volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't come back. The journey took 5 days, through space that was increasingly hostile to human life. The Hollow Ones had spread far from the original breach, and reality itself seemed to be breaking down in affected areas. They passed through regions where the stars looked wrong, where space curved in impossible ways, where time moved at different speeds. On the 3rd day, they lost 2 soldiers when a Hollow One appeared on the ship without warning. It had somehow followed them through faster-than-light space. Nicole had to seal the compartment where the men had been taken, listening to their screams over the comm before their voices went silent. How much further? She asked Sam, her jaw tight with anger and fear. 2 days if we maintain current speed, Sam replied. But Captain, the sensors are showing massive distortions ahead. The rift has expanded significantly since the Odyssey's reach was here. Gregory sat in his quarters, reviewing the Elder data one more time. He had memorized every word of the warning by now. The Elders had tried to tell them. They had made it so clear. But humanity's curiosity had been stronger than wisdom. He thought about Kyle Brennan's sacrifice at Unity Station. He thought about the billions of people in danger across human space. He would make this right, even if it cost him everything. Linda found him there an hour before they reached the rift. Having second thoughts? She asked gently. No, Gregory said. I'm thinking about how many people are going to die because of my decision. How many already have died? We all made choices, Linda said. You gave the order, but I could have refused to translate the Elder Beacon. Jake could have refused to go closer. We all played a part. She sat down beside him. But now we get to make it right. That's more than most people get. Jake Morrison spent his time in the medical bay, monitoring his own transformation. The doctors watched in fascination and horror as his cellular structure slowly changed. He was becoming something between human and Hollow One, something that existed partially in both dimensions. It was painful, but he welcomed the pain. It meant he was still alive, still human enough to feel. When they finally emerged from faster-than-light travel, everyone on the Hope's End stopped to stare at the view screen. The rift had grown massive. It was now over 100 miles across, a wound in space that leaked darkness and impossible light. The Elder containment field was completely gone. Thousands of Hollow Ones moved around the rift, swirling like insects around a hive. My God, Sam whispered. There are so many of them. And they're all coming from one rift, Nicole said grimly. How many more rifts are there in the galaxy? How many other civilizations released them? They didn't have time to wonder. The Hollow Ones had noticed their arrival. Hundreds of the entities began moving toward the Hope's End with terrible speed. All teams battle stations, Nicole ordered. We need to buy time for the resonance device. Every second counts. The escort ships launched, small fighters piloted by brave men and women who knew they were facing death. They couldn't hurt the Hollow Ones with weapons, but they could slow them down, distract them, draw them away from the Hope's End. The pilots flew through swarms of the shadow creatures, their ships becoming coffins as entities phased through halls and consumed their crews. On the Hope's End, Gregory, Linda, and Jake moved to the resonance chamber. The device sat in the center of the room, a massive structure built from Elder technology and human desperation. 3 connection chairs surrounded it, each one equipped with neural interfaces that would link directly to a human brain. The Elders left detailed instructions, Linda said, her hands moving over the controls. We activate our neural links simultaneously. The device will synchronize our consciousness patterns and begin the resonance cascade. It takes about 5 minutes to reach full power, and then the pulse releases. 5 minutes of being torn apart at the quantum level, Jake said flatly. He was trembling now, fighting against the Hollow One influence in his mind. Let's get it over with before I lose myself completely. They took their positions in the chairs. Gregory looked at the other two, these people who had become more than just crew to him. They had become friends in the face of apocalypse. Thank you, he said simply. Don't thank us yet, Linda replied, managing a small smile. We still have to make this work. Outside the ship, Nicole's team fought desperately. The Hollow Ones were everywhere now, overwhelming the escort fighters. Sam's ship was hit by something that shouldn't exist, and it began to spin out of control. Sorry, Captain, Sam said over the comm. I don't think I'm making it back. It was an honor flying with you, Nicole said. Her voice tight-dot in the resonance chamber. 3 hands reached out and activated 3 neural links simultaneously. The machine hummed to life, and Gregory Stone felt his consciousness grabbed by something beyond comprehension. The pain was instant and absolute. He screamed, but he held on. This was his redemption. This was how he made it right. Linda Hayes felt her mind being pulled apart and woven into patterns of pure energy. Through the agony, she could see the elders who had done this before. Millions of them, sacrificing everything to save civilizations they would never meet. She understood their choice now. She understood their courage. Jake Morrison felt the Hollow One part of himself being used to bridge dimensions. His hybrid nature let him reach deeper into the device than the others could. It hurt more than anything he had ever imagined, but the resonance device screamed with power that no human ear could hear, but every soul could feel. On the Hope's End, 3 people were dying in the slowest and most painful way possible. Their consciousness was being pulled apart, thread by thread, and woven into a weapon that spanned dimensions. Lieutenant Jake Morrison went first. His hybrid nature made him the perfect conduit between human reality and the dimension of the Hollow Ones. He felt his mind expanding into spaces that shouldn't exist, touching thoughts that weren't thoughts, seeing colors that had no names. The pain was beyond description. It felt like every nerve in his body was on fire, while simultaneously being frozen in absolute zero. But through the agony, he held on to one thought: Danny West's empty eyes. The friend he had killed through his carelessness. This was for Danny. This was for everyone. His consciousness fragmented into a million pieces, each one becoming part of the resonance field. Jake Morrison, the man, ceased to exist. But his sacrifice powered the first layer of the dimensional seal. Dr. Linda Hayes felt Jake's presence dissolve and knew she was next. The device pulled at her mind with hungry fingers. She had spent her entire career trying to understand the elders, studying their language, their culture, their warnings. Now, in her final moments, she understood them completely. She could feel the echoes of the millions of elders who had done this exact thing millions of years ago. They whispered to her across time and space, welcoming her to their sacrifice. She saw visions in the pain. The elders had been beautiful, graceful beings of light and thought. Their civilization had spanned thousands of worlds. They had created wonders that humanity couldn't even imagine. And they had given it all up to seal the rifts and protect species that didn't even exist yet. Species like humanity. Linda let go of her fear. Her knowledge of the elder language allowed her to guide the resonance patterns, shaping them with precision that the device needed. Her mind unraveled, but she used every second of awareness to refine the seal. The elders had left their knowledge in the beacon for exactly this reason, so that others could succeed where they had failed to prevent the breach. Her final thought was a prayer that humanity would learn from this, that they would respect the warnings left by those who came before. Then Dr. Linda Hayes became energy and light, and the second layer of the seal locked into place. Captain Gregory Stone felt both of his companions die. He was alone now in the resonance chamber, though his body was still strapped to the chair. Most of his mind was already gone, fed into the machine. But he held on to the core of who he was for just a little longer. He needed to see this through to the end dot, through the device's sensors. He could feel the hollow ones, thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands, all pulling at the edges of reality. They were trying to keep the rift open, trying to stop the seal. They were ancient and powerful, and they were terrified. They had been imprisoned once before by the elders. They didn't want to be trapped again, but Gregory Stone had made a promise. To Kyle Brennan, to the billions of people in danger, to humanity itself. He would not fail. He poured everything he had left into the device. His memories, his regrets, his hopes, his dreams. He fed it all to the machine and felt it transform into pure resonance energy. He saw his life flash before him. Growing up on Earth, dreaming of the stars. Joining the space service. His first command. Meeting his crew. The day they found the Elder Beacon. The terrible choice he had made. All of it led to this moment. Gregory Stone's final thought was an apology to Kyle Brennan. Then he let go, and the third layer of the seal completed. The resonance device reached full power and released its pulse. Reality. Screamed dot. The pulse expanded outward at speeds that made light seem slow. It was a wave of pure consciousness transformed into dimensional force. It swept through the hollow ones like a wind through dead leaves, grabbing them, pulling them, forcing them back toward the rift. They fought and struggled, but they couldn't resist the combined will of 3 human beings who had given everything to stop them. On the Hope's End, Captain Nicole Freeman watched through her view screen as the impossible happened. The hollow ones were being pulled back into the rift like water down a drain. Thousands of them flowing backward in a great dark tide. They made sounds that weren't sounds, cries that existed only in the mind. They were afraid. They were angry. But they were losing. All ships, get back, Nicole ordered. The pulse is expanding. Everyone moved to safe distance. The remaining escort ships, only 3 left now, retreated at maximum speed. Behind them, the resonance pulse continued its work. The rift itself began to collapse, the edges pulling together like a wound being stitched closed. The hollow ones trapped inside reached out desperately, trying to hold it open, but the seal was too strong. The rift collapsed completely in a flash of light that existed in colors no human had names for. Then it was gone. The tier in reality had been closed. The prison door had been locked again. The Hope's End hung silent in space, a tomb for 3 heroes who had saved humanity. Nicole Freeman sat in her command chair, tears running down her face. She had lost 17 soldiers during the mission. The Hope's End crew was gone, but they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had defeated the Hollow Ones. The journey back to Earth took 7 days. The news had already spread across human space through the quantum communication networks. The Hollow Ones were gone. The rift was sealed. The nightmare was over, but the cost had been terrible. Final casualty reports came in over the following weeks. 3.2 million humans dead or lost. 12 colonies completely destroyed or abandoned. Their populations consumed by the Hollow Ones before the seal was completed. 6 major space stations rendered uninhabitable, sealed from the inside with unknown numbers of victims still trapped within. Unity Station had been partially saved thanks to Kyle Brennan's sacrifice, but 32,000 survivors had to be evacuated to new homes. Mars had lost 3 colonies completely. The other settlements had been locked down in time, saved by the desperate actions of local authorities who had believed Admiral Boyd's warnings. But the scars would remain for generations. Admiral Christine Boyd stood before the United Earth Assembly 6 months after the crisis ended. Her hair had gone completely gray during those terrible weeks. She looked older than her years, but her voice was strong. "We ignored the wisdom of those who came before us," she said. The elders left us a clear warning, and we thought we knew better. We thought our technology made us special. We thought the rules didn't apply to us. 3.2 million people paid for our arrogance with their lives. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives from every human colony. But we also showed something important. When faced with extinction, humanity didn't run. We didn't surrender. 3 ordinary people gave their lives to save everyone else. And they weren't alone. Hundreds of soldiers, scientists, and regular people fought against impossible odds. Commander Kyle Brennan sealed himself in a station to save 30,000 lives. 17 fighter pilots flew into swarms of hollow ones to buy time for the resonance device. Countless others made small sacrifices that added up to our survival. The elders saved us by leaving their knowledge behind. Captain Gregory Stone, Dr. Linda Hayes, and Lieutenant Jake Morrison saved us by using that knowledge. Now it's our turn to pay it forward. The Assembly passed the Elder Protocol unanimously. Any Elder warning found in the future would be treated as absolute law. No investigation, no research, no exceptions. Violating an Elder warning became the most serious crime in human law, punishable by permanent exile from all human space. A new military division was created, the Sentinel Corps. Captain Nicole Freeman took command. Their mission was to find and protect Elder warning sites across the galaxy, to make sure no one ever made the same mistake humanity had made. The sector around the sealed rift was declared forbidden space. A massive monument was built at the system's edge, warning any ship that approached. It contained the full story of what had happened, in every human language and dozens of alien languages that humanity had encountered. The names of everyone who died were carved into a memorial wall that stretched for a mile dot at the top of the memorial. 3 names were carved larger than the others: Captain Gregory Stone, Dr. Linda Hayes, and Lieutenant Jake Morrison. Below their names, a simple inscription. They ignored a warning and doomed millions. They gave their lives and saved billions. Remember both. Dr. Vincent Cole continued his work, translating the Elder data. He discovered references to other sealed rifts across the galaxy. The Elders had fought the Hollow Ones on hundreds of worlds. They had left warnings everywhere, hoping that younger species would be wiser than they had been. Most species had listened. A few hadn't. Those civilizations were gone now, consumed by the things they had released. Humanity had survived by the narrowest of margins, and they had learned their lesson in the hardest way possible. 10 years after the crisis, a Sentinel Corps ship found another Elder beacon on a planet at the edge of explored space. The warning was similar to the one on the crystal sphere. Stay away from this sector. A rift is sealed here. Do not investigate under any circumstances. The ship's captain, a young officer named Lisa Chun, read the Elder warning carefully.